this channel Cool Story Pro. I came across this channel and this story last night. I just saved it to watch later. I thought I might react to it, so this is my first time reacting to Cool Story Pro's videos. Let's see what this video is about.
What is up, guys? Today we have got a crazy story. It's not necessarily a cool story. This one is absolutely insane, dark, but it's a story that at least every South African needs to know. It's like a real life horror movie. Today we are going to be talking about the most evil cult in South African history. And no, I'm not talking about Blue Bull supporters. Sorry, I shouldn't have made that joke. I'm gonna get cancelled now. People are gonna cancel me for this. But this one is actually, sorry Blue Bull supporters, sorry, I know you probably will hate me now. But anyway, this is actually a story we shouldn't joke about. This is a really messed up and disturbing sequence of events that took place in South Africa. Today we're going to be talking about the Krugerdorp cult, also known as the Krugerdorp killers. However, they refer to themselves as electus per deus, which means chosen by God, and they were involved in an extremely horrific series of crimes between 2012 and 2016, including fraud, robbery, and let's just say eliminating people, terrorizing mainly the town of Krugerdorp, which is not far from Johannesburg, I believe about an hour or two away from Johannesburg. And you know, from the outside, this group of people seemed like a normal group of friendly.
Yeah, so what I've gathered so far, they're essentially an organization that's involved with crime.
Bible reading individuals. You know, they just wanted to do some Bible study together. However, secretly, behind closed doors, they believed that they were chosen by God above the law and justified in doing whatever they want to anyone who stands in their way. And the craziest part of this whole
Yeah, so just to remind all what I've said in one of the other videos, these people had always used God and spirituality, religion to manipulate whatever situation. I said before, beware of them, and now it proves.
Story is when you find out about their insane leader. She must be one of the most evil people to ever come out of South Africa. You'll see it gets crazy, much darker than it seems. We're going to get into all of that today. Ethan is excited for this video because he knows quite a bit about the Krugerdorp killers. We're going to get into all of that today. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and let's get into it. So it all started with the cult leader. I think that's the best place to start. And her name is Cecilia Steyn. Back in 2012, while living in the town of Krugerdorp. It's always Krugerdorp, hey Ethan?
It's always Krugerdorp.
I don't understand what is happening.
No, it's not always Krugerdorp. Evil and crime is happening all over the world, not only in Krugerdorp.
In Krugerdorp, but it's always Krugerdorp. I swear, I've covered like 5 crazy stories to do with Krugerdorp. It's insane. Anyway, so she lived in Krugerdorp and she decided one day she wanted to join a Bible study, but not for pure reasons at all. She signed up to a religious group called Overcomers Through Christ, and she told them she joined because she believed she needed to be delivered from Satanism. And so, you know, they took her in, they prayed for her, they tried to make her feel welcome, and she became part of the group. However, the thing with Cecilia and most cult leaders is they want control. So this wasn't good enough for her. She wanted to control the group. She wanted to be the leader. And ultimately, this led to a lot of conflict with the group's actual leader, a woman named Ria Groenewald. And so Cecilia decided to eventually leave the group and form her own religious group. And she called it, as we mentioned earlier, electus per deus, which means chosen by God. How vain to call yourself chosen by God. Anyway, in fact, she actually took some of the members with her that were part of the Overcomers Through Christ group. So this was like a splinter group.
No, there's not actually a vein for them to call themselves chosen by God. Certain individuals, some people actually truly believe in what they say. So for them to say they're chosen by God, just know that they really believe that they were chosen.
That went away from the main group and they formed their own group. And these people that she took with her would eventually become her followers, who would do literally anything for her. It's actually crazy. So this includes a husband and a wife named Zach and Michaela Valentine. Remember them for later, gets crazy. And another woman who joined Cecilia was Marinda Stain. That's the English way of saying it. The Afrikaans way is probably like Marinda Stain, but I'm English, so sorry to the Afrikaans people for botching that. Anyway, so Marinda joined Cecilia's cult as well as her two children. So you had Cecilia Stain at the top as the mastermind. Zach Valentine was sort of the second in.
Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to pause on Zach Valentine. I missed it, but just looking at his picture, as I said, again, be able to read people. Just looking at him, you can tell there's something wrong with that individual.
Command that would do anything for her, and his wife was also in the group. And then there was Marinda Stain, who was also a school teacher, by the way, and then Marinda's two kids, Marcel Stain and LaRue Stain. They were only teenagers during this period, and they would go on to commit the horrific crimes we would see later. Teenagers were part of this. It's insane. So Cecilia Stain was manipulative, charismatic, and deeply dangerous. She claimed to have spiritual powers, divine visions, and direct communication with God. Her followers believed she could see demons, predict events, and decide who deserved to live and who deserved to not live. Also, another interesting thing about Cecilia Stain was she was actually the wife of a policeman and the mother of two. But what's really interesting is, as you'll see throughout this story, Cecilia Stain did a lot of crazy stuff while she was married to her husband. And when this all came out in court, the husband said that he had no idea she was doing this stuff and that they were living similar lives. How do you not know that your wife is a cult leader? That's what
I wanted to say. Highly unlikely for the husband not to have known what his wife was involved in. But sometimes too, some people are so secretive, so manipulative that they're able to hide things, and they're able to hide a lot of things, especially if you work and you go to work, you come back home, you eat, you sleep, you don't really notice a lot of things. But some individuals, some females, they're able to hide a lot of things, even men too. So on both sides, what he's saying about not knowing about what his wife was doing is possible.
I want to know. Anyway, so Cecilia convinced her new followers that they were warriors in a spiritual war, and that in a spiritual war, any kind of action was justified. So yeah, what happens next is just crazy. So this new group led by Cecilia Stain decided to launch a series of attacks against their old Bible study group. How bitter do you have to be to launch literal attacks against people because of clickiness or whatever? There's just a grudge on a whole new level. So it started with, and you can imagine if it starts like this, how bad it actually gets. So Cecilia's group decided to build a whole bunch of, things that go boom, and they put them underneath the cars of the congregants and members of the Overcomers Through Christ group as an act of intimidation. Thankfully, on this specific occasion, which was in 2012, they didn't detonate because the group was spotted and fled. However, a few weeks later, they started a fire and broke windows at a church, and I'm assuming it was the church where the Overcomers Through Christ group had their gatherings. Anyway, so this went on for a couple of weeks, if not months, of intimidation, and then eventually the group decided to take it up a new level. Intimidation wasn't enough. So remember the guy we mentioned earlier, Zach, who was the husband of that couple? Zach Valentine convinced him and his...
Yeah, so just by looking at that Zach Valentine, he looks like more of a planner. He'll plan, or he'll plot the whole action. He'll put together the plan, he'll organize the plan, and then other people will carry it out. Just by looking at him, that's my analysis on him.
Wife, Michaela, to get rid of a woman named Natasha Berger, who was a member of their previous Bible study group, the same Overcomers Through Christ group. Now, what's interesting is, again, Cecilia Stain didn't do this herself. She asked two of her followers to carry out the crimes for her. So they were so angry at their old Bible study group that Cecilia was like, go and take out this woman. We're going to seek revenge, a whole new level of revenge. And that's what they did. And what's even worse is the way they got rid of her. We can't share the gory details on here, but let's just say it involved sharp objects, how they eliminated her. And yes, during this attack, they also eliminated a friend of this woman. And the same year, in August 2012, the Valentines dressed up as police officers, and apparently they were able to get the uniforms because Cecilia Stain, remember, was married to a police officer. And they entered the home of a pastor and they eliminated him with an axe. Insane.
No, just look at how shrewd these people were. They were able to get their hands on police uniform because the husband was supposedly connected to the police force. And that's how they gained entry onto the premises and into the house. So even people, just be careful. People come in uniform, they look legit. They look like law enforcement. They look like they're connected to whatever organization. Just be careful. Ask for identity if possible. Don't just allow people access to your property. Look what happened to this person. He thought the police were entering his premises and his property. Meantime, these people were coming to kill him.
Insane. His name was Pastor Ben Dixon, a friend and mentor of Ria Krugerdorp, who, remember, is the leader of the Overcomers Through Christ group. And there's two things that are interesting here. One is, why weren't they actually going for Ria Krugerdorp herself? Why were they trying to take out people around her? Or maybe it was to scare her, or maybe there were too many.
No. You see, the thing is, a lot of the time what happens, they'll have a target. But because they're struggling to get hold of the target, they're struggling to do whatever they want to do to the target, they get the people closest to the target. So if they can't reach a certain individual, they know there's a family member or there's friends or people around them that they have access to. That's what they'll generally do. So if they can't get you, generally they'll get someone close to you. It doesn't sound right or fair, but that's just the reality.
Eyes on her, and they were worried they would be caught. Yeah, again, another interesting thing is how Cecilia wasn't carrying out these crimes necessarily herself. She was instructing her followers to. It reminds me a lot of Charles Manson in America. If you're not familiar with that case, he also led a very destructive cult, and he got them to do crimes for him. And I believe he never actually ended up doing any of the crimes himself. He just got his followers to. So Cecilia Stain actually reminds me a lot of Charles Manson, which is really interesting. Anyway, so the group had...
Yeah, so what Charles Manson was doing is not uncommon. Generally, that's how crime is carried out. You'll get one person who plans and organizes everything, but he doesn't actually do anything himself. People around him he pays, or voluntarily they do it.
Now started to murder people, which is crazy. 3 people at this point. And Michaela Valentine, the wife of Zach, the second in command, she was the only one who actually got a conscience at this point. And she was like, I don't want to be part of this cult, which is taking people out. This is messed up and evil. I want to leave. And Ethan, how can you guess they responded to that?
I don't think they must have liked it. Probably... Yeah, you tell us.
So, obviously Cecilia, they didn't like this and they decided to get rid of her, if you know what I mean. By this point, the murders are starting to stack up quite a bit. So remember Miranda Stain? Her and her 14-year-old daughter were the ones who had to eliminate one of their own members, Michaela. So, yeah, she was 14 years old at this time. Messed up. Anyway, so some time went by and the problem was this group was starting to run out of money. So initially what started as a group, which was meant to just seek revenge, now they actually wanted to financially benefit from this group. I think especially Cecilia Stain, she wanted to live in luxury. And Zach Valentine, he had already contributed about 2 million rand of his own money to the group, even borrowing money from his parents and his in-laws. Meanwhile, he just had his wife taken out knowingly. I'm assuming he knew about it. But yeah, the point was the group was running out of money and the group had to take some actions to get some money. And what they did next is absolutely insane. So first they infiltrated the home of a man who they believed was wealthy named Peter Mayer, and they tied him and his wife up and demanded money. When they said they don't have money, they got rid of them. And the next trick they tried to pull was by faking Zach Valentine's death for the life insurance payout of 3.5 million rand. So how they tried to fake his death is just ridiculous, like something out of a movie. So are these people nuts, honestly?
No, faking of death is not something that's out of a movie. Maybe you're just not exposed to things like that, but people faking their deaths, that's a common occurrence. It's not my first time hearing of such things, but for you to fake your death for 3.5 million, 3.5 might sound like a lot of money, but in reality it's not.
So again, big life insurance policy around Zach Valentine. They need money. And so they crashed his car and put his car on fire. And then they took a guy off the street, eliminated him and put him in the car so people would think it's Zach Valentine who died. in the car accident. So that's why they also had fraud charges against them later on. And then they did a series of what's called appointment murders. So they would set up fake
So as you can already tell, these are some sick individuals.
appointments with different people, like maybe it was a job interview, or I believe some of these people were also like financial advisors. So they would find these financial advisors online and they'd say, can we meet with you? And then once they got them alone, they would pull the same trick, take them to an ATM, demand money. Once they get that person's money, they would get rid of them. In total, between 2012 and 2016, they got rid of 11 people. They killed 11 people. Very, very tragic. And eventually how they got caught was the families of the victims started to get suspicious of this group, and police started to notice a trend that all these victims, more often than not, this cult actually knew them in some way. So they started to connect the dots and they traced the money, and then they were arrested in 2016. But you see, when you're in a cult, you are so oblivious to what you're actually doing, believe it or not. It sounds crazy, but that's what psychologists say about cults. You're so oblivious to what you're actually doing.
Yeah, so as the saying goes, what happens in the dark will come to light. So no matter how well you plan and strategize everything that you do it often enough and the truth will come out.
However, when these members were finally separated from Cecilia Stain, they started to open up to the investigators. So Cecilia told them that the victims that they eliminated were demons, that God commanded them to do all this stuff. As we mentioned earlier, that they were in a spiritual war, and that they also said basically that Cecilia had told them to do all these crazy crimes. In 2019, the main members of this group were convicted. Let's run through their sentences very quickly. The two youngest, LaRue Stain, one of the teenagers, he testified and received a reduced sentence of 35 years. His sister Marcel got 7 life sentences. Marinda Stain got 11 life sentences. Zach Valentine, second in command, got 8 life sentences. And the main woman, Cecilia, got 13 life sentences.
This is the worst case I've presided over.
Yeah, so as you can tell, the crime and the acts that they committed is not worth it. Most of these people essentially got life sentences, meaning you go into prison and you're never coming out. Life in prison is not worth living for anybody, especially for them that got life sentences. Now they're going to pay for the things that they've done.
In my 18 years on the bench.
Now this story doesn't end here. Not long ago, in fact about a year or two ago, Cecilia actually was allegedly caught trying to break out of prison. There were reports coming out of the prison where she was held, Sun City Prison, that apparently she was found with a map of the prison, and a lot of people think this was her plot to try and actually get out of the prison. The prison themselves and authorities denied these allegations. However, she apparently had a pretty elaborate plot. According to one source in the prison, Cecilia had been planning an escape for quite some time, and the plan was allegedly to pay someone to put something into the food to make all the prisoners sick, and then that would hopefully take them into a specific part of the prison where they would carry out their plot. However, this plot was foiled and she is still in prison. So yeah.
You see, now the thing is, these people, they watch so many movies and so many series, thinking they can actually watch these things and then mimic what they've watched. Escaping from prison or jail is almost impossible. There's so many cameras, there's so many correctional officers, there's so many prison wardens. That's almost impossible to escape. So for you to try to do something like that, you're only adding to your sentence.
This is an insane story. Ethan, what do you think about this? This is crazy, eh?
Yeah, I just want to know what Bible translation they use.
Yeah.
Seriously.
It's the Satanist Bible translation. I don't know. But yeah, Ethan, you watch videos. Did I miss any interesting details?
Not that I know of. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Krugerdorp is a crazy place.
Krugerdorp. I've been there. I enjoyed it there.
Yeah, as I said too, it's not only Krugerdorp, the world is a crazy place. So people just be careful, be aware. There's a lot of crazy, evil people doing crazy, evil things. There's a lot of bad spirits. There's a lot of negativity that's going around. So in everything that you do, just always be cautious, be responsible with your life, the people around you. Don't take anything for granted. Keep your eyes open, front, and back of your head. Salute.